Now that he is committed long-term, I'm wondering how much interest was there from AEW to acquire Kevin Owens?
I would have been interested in that. He's a great wrestler.
What up, everyone? Shakiel Mahjouri here for CBS Sports, and you know who this is. He is the founder and president of All Elite Wrestling, and perhaps the only person to go from the booking simulators of EWR and TEW to the real thing. And for that, I salute you. Tony Khan, how's it going, my man?
Good, Shaq. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for making the time today. And in the coronation of Hangman Adam Page, there was a lot made of the fact that these first four guys are all people that you had this planned out from the get-go. Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page. Moving forward with all the growth and sort of like the rapid development of AEW, obviously long-term storytelling is always at the crux of AEW, but are you playing it a little bit more by ear now, seeing how fans gauge reactions and stuff like that, or do you think you have the next four planned out?
I think a lot has changed in recent months, and some huge stars have come into AEW. The number one contender now is Bryan Danielson, and just this past week, he wrestled in one of the greatest matches we've ever had in AEW and took our new champion, Hangman Page, to the limit. And I think that's the biggest rivalry in AEW and maybe all of wrestling right now is the Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Page situation. And Bryan Danielson, I can tell you officially, as the rankings committee, Bryan Danielson is still the number one contender. And I'm very excited for the resolution of this situation, Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Page. And so I think that's first and foremost right now. And he's somebody who's just come into the company. Mm-hmm. So any plans that we might have had in advance really have to go out the window when you have such a great number one contender stepping into the situation. And so many other huge wrestlers have joined AEW just in recent months. Mm-hmm. Huge names like CM Punk, Adam Cole, Malachi Black, Andrade El Idolo, many others. So there is a great title picture and a lot of other great wrestlers in AEW who I think could be great champions like Pac, MJF, Jungle Boy, the TNT champion, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and so many other great wrestlers potentially who could step up. And I think there's so many others I could name. And so I think it's a great, great time for AEW right now. And with so many great stars coming in and such an exciting championship picture with Danielson as the number one contender, Hangman is the champion, and how can we possibly follow that amazing match they had on Wednesday? But there's still so much to come, and it's a very exciting time for AEW, heading into the holidays. We have such a huge show this coming week with the Holiday Bash. We'll find out more. I'll reveal more about the championship picture and what's to come with Hangman Page and Bryan Danielson. And also we have one of the biggest main events we've ever had on Dynamite with Sting, CM Punk, and Darby Allin taking on MJF and FTR. And it's the first time Sting has wrestled in Greensboro in 27 years. Whoa. It's crazy. And for Darby Allin and Sting to be teaming with CM Punk for the first time ever, that's awesome. And I think for them to be facing MJF and FTR, it's such a huge match. And there's a lot more on tap for Dynamite. I've got some big announcements about what's to come on next week's Dynamite that we'll be putting out there also on tonight's Rampage. So there's a lot to look forward to tonight on Rampage.
Since you mentioned MJF, there was a report that came out recently that Fox, USA Network, and WWE are very big on trying to get MJF as a talent. Obviously, he's tied up to a contract. I just wanted to gauge your reaction when you hear that execs at the other company are so big on a guy who you are now spotlighting as one of your major young homegrown talents.
I think that's great. I really I encourage that. I think they should keep talking about him because he's a wrestler that's a big part of AEW and is signed here for a few more years. So I think please keep giving us that buzz because he's been getting great ratings for his segments, and those have also been featuring CM Punk pretty regularly as they continue to interact. And they've had a war of words, and now they'll be on opposite sides of this huge trios match where you got Sting, Darby Allin teaming with CM Punk against MJF and FTR. And I think that's great. they had some wrestlers I really wanted to sign there, and I signed them: Bryan Danielson and Adam Page and Ruby Soho. So.
Well, okay, on that note then, Kevin Owens, someone who I think a lot of fans were hoping could maybe find his way to AEW, reunite with some of his buddies like Adam Cole and the Young Bucks. Now that he is committed long-term, I'm wondering how much interest was there from AEW to acquire Kevin Owens?
I would have been interested in that. He's a great wrestler. I think he ended up signing for what I believe is probably a lot of money, and I think that's great and good for him. And we have a lot of people spotlighted here, and he's great, and any company he goes to, he'll be a great wrestler for them.
This is the last question about potential signees. I put out a little Q&A thread, and the internet's hero Danhausen is someone who came up a lot. So I will ask you, because a lot of people were wondering, any interest in bringing Danhausen into the AEW fold?
Well, he was on the Jericho cruise, interacting with a lot of the AEW wrestlers, and that was great. He's had an injury recently, I know. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure. He's got a big following, and he does sell some merch, and he's a very nice guy. So he's got a lot of things going for him.
Well, shout out to Hook, another guy who's churning out the merchandise. Amazing to see the feedback to his debut.
Maybe a bit different of an athletic specimen. A touch. To Danhausen.
A touch. I do want to circle back briefly to the amazing Hangman Adam Page, Bryan Danielson match. We go an hour. I just wanted to pick your booking brain a little bit there. How do you go around structuring that match? Because, some people are saying, so you got to save something like that for the end of the night, whereas others would argue, well, if you do that, you might risk sort of peeling back the curtain on what the finish is going to be. Can you tell me what went into your mind, what it went to the process of booking that match and sort of working everything around it?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. If I had put it at the end of the night and it was the only thing left and there had been an hour left in the show, it would have been a little fishy. So I think it made a lot of sense putting where it was. And then if I'd had something else, I could have done something and canceled something. That would have been false advertising, and I generally try not to do that. And I thought it made a lot of sense, the positioning of it, especially because we've led off with huge main events and huge segments, and I'll continue to do that. When I was a kid, the Saturday night's main event shows led off with a big segment, and a lot of the big, highly rated matches in recent years have actually been the first match on the show in all kinds of wrestling companies all over the world. So there's nothing wrong with putting a prominent match in a prominent position at the front of the card. We've done it a number of times, and it did a great number. I was really pleased with how it grew. And then by the end of the match, we had built a huge audience, nearly 500,000 in the demo, but 1.2 million total viewers, and nearly 500,000 in the 18 to 49, which is demo that is really important to advertisers and the network. And then for the end of the show, also huge interest in MJF and CM Punk. Again, by the end of the show, we had built up close to 1.2 million, over 1.1 million total viewers. And in the demo, well over 500,000 there. And that was the peak of the night, actually, for the rating was at the end of the show, the last minute, when Sting, Darby, and CM Punk were out there going at it with MJF and FTR, setting up the big trios match for this week's Dynamite, which probably has a chance to bode well for the holiday bash. It's always the week of Christmas, where people have a lot of things going on. There's family and a lot out there, but people love watching wrestling. People love watching wrestling around the holidays. And I think we're going to give them something special to try and keep the viewers hooked in Christmas week with this huge match with Sting and Darby and CM Punk versus MJF and FTR, and a lot more on that show too that I'll announce tonight on Rampage. The holiday bash is a very stacked card.
Tony, you know your stats and your lineups like I know taquito flavors, just like right in the back of the head there. One thing that's very near dear to my heart, you'll see the UFC belt over here. Unionization is a thing that is coming up all the time in MMA these days. Shout out to Dan Lambert, by the way. He's just been doing a fantastic job over in AEW. As someone like yourself who's on the business end and also has a really close relationship with talent in this climate of other companies releasing a lot of talent, what is your take on how unionization should work? It could work if it should work in pro wrestling.
I have no comment on that.
Okay, fair enough. I did read, someone pointed out that, and I couldn't find your quote here, that initially with the launch of Rampage, you had a lot of interest in featuring the FTW title more prominently on that brand. And I know it's been defended on there, but going into 2022, could we see the FTW title take a bigger role along with the TBS title?
Well, it's potentially right now, Ricky Starks has a major issue with Dante Martin. And I know the FTW champion, Ricky Starks, we are blessed to hear him on commentary on Rampage on Friday nights. But also, he's a great wrestler. And as the FTW champion, with his issues with Dante Martin, I do think there's potential that, he might want to defend the title against him in the future. But I think there's a lot to keep an eye on. That situation with Dante really sticking it to Team Taz. We saw Ricky come out and get a little payback on Dante this week for how Dante did him dirty in the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal a couple weeks ago. So when it comes to the champion, Ricky Starks, and the FTW title, there's a lot happening.
MJF, 3-time Dynamite Diamond Ring champion, only one to this point. You guys, I think one thing I really like about AEW is, even though you guys have such a stacked roster, I think you've done a terrific job of sort of rotating talent in and out from certain spots to give everyone a chance to breathe. That being said, there's so much talent top and down. Going into 2022, are there any talents you'd like to utilize more that perhaps maybe up until this point have had to take a bit of a backseat just based on booking?
Well, I'm very excited, not just based on book. I think for a variety of reasons, there's a number of people I'm excited to feature in the coming year. For example, it was completely out of everyone's control, but Darius Martin has been out injured, and I think he's tremendous. And I would love to get him back soon and teaming with his brother Dante. Dante has become a big star, and I think they were tremendous as a tag team. And I mean, when the injury happened, Darius was 21 and Dante was 19. Now Dante's 20, and at 20 years old has been featured so much on Dynamite and Rampage, and has now been a main eventer on Dynamite. And when Darius comes back, I think he's somebody that could come in and be great for us. So I'm really excited about him in particular. So I think that's a important name to keep an eye on, is Darius Martin, somebody who's been out that we haven't seen in a long time.
And you would think generally when one half of a young tag team gets injured that team is going to be put on ice, but Darius is coming into a fantastic situation now where Dante has really elevated both his own profile as well as his partners.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And they were really on fire when the injury happened, and it seemed like it was so unfortunate, and it has sucked for Darius, and I really miss him, and we've missed him. But it's going to be great when he's back, and Dante's done a tremendous job making sure that they'll be in a prominent position when Darius returns.
Now, you have on your women's side of the division, there are people like Emi Sakura, Thunder Rosa, who have experience not just competing, but also working in a behind-the-stage capacity. We've seen in other promotions, people like Gail Kim in Impact, Mickie James in A&W, Maria Kanellis in Ring of Honor, sort of ascend to these roles where they are in charge or, involved in the booking and the working with the female talent. Is there anyone on the roster who currently fulfills that kind of role, or who you could see fulfilling that role?
Well, Serena Deeb is a great coach and has a great mind for wrestling, and is very involved in is backstage as far as in the women's division. And she's got a great presence, is a great veteran, and has a great mind. So she's somebody who's coached matches, but not just in the women's division. Serena's also coached matches in the men's division. She's got a great head for it.
Amazing. Now I'm going to get a couple just quick updatey things out of the way, because then I want to geek out for the last couple minutes here. Do we have any update on AEW in the Western United States as well as internationally? Up here in Canada, obviously, a very complicated situation we've been dealing with for the past few years.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to bring AEW back to the West Coast. We had done the original Double or Nothing in Las Vegas Memorial Day 2019, and we're going to bring Double or Nothing back to Las Vegas in 2022. And I'm very excited about that. Doing the show in Jacksonville the past couple of years, they've been great shows, and I look forward to a lot more exciting wrestling in Jacksonville, including in 2 weeks, the final Dynamite ever on TNT. as well as the New Year's Eve episode of Rampage will be in Jacksonville. And that is, something that's very near and dear to my heart. Daly's Place is a huge part of the history of AEW and now a historic wrestling building where there's been a lot of great matches and great shows. But it's going to be great to bring Double or Nothing also back to Las Vegas and bring AEW to the West Coast around that Double or Nothing loop.
Internationally, is it just kind of a wait and see situation right now?
Yeah, especially with everything going on right now, I think it would be super crass to comment on when, we're going to go international.
No, totally fair. Any update you can share on an AEW video game? I know I'm very excited to get my hands on that one.
Yeah, me too. I don't have exact dates, but I think we're going to have huge announcements in 2022 about our console game. And there's been a ton of work and resources put into the development. And I can promise you, we have a lot to show for it. It's going to be a great game, and I'm very excited.
Speaking of video games, I know you used to play these booking simulators that myself and many other people did. And, who didn't try to pick up Bryan Danielson or CM Punk on day one with their promotion? But I'm wondering, are there any stories you had crafted in these video games that you've now been able to translate onto AEW television?
Actually, yeah. It 5 years ago, some stuff that is played out with Adam Cole and Kenny Omega after Full Gear did something very similar on Dynamite, actually, 5 years ago. And a lot of the people there, if you look at the Dynamite roster that I had and Rampage, as Dynamite's been a show that I've written in word processor programs some that don't exist anymore, email, message boards, all kinds of places it's been posted since 1995. And then I had, even in my fantasy shows, had built a roster where I could do 2 shows, and then started doing Rampage in 2011. So we've been doing Dynamite now for well over 25 years and Rampage for over 10 in my head, at least. So now looking at it, the roster from 5 years ago I had in the game is actually very similar to what the AEW roster is, which is amazing because a lot of it has changed this year in free agency with people coming in, huge names, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, and Andrade El Idolo, and Christian Cage, and people who came in last year that were also a huge part of the Dynamite roster, whether it was Miro, Sting, and so many others. And of course, from the beginning, it was Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and John Moxley when he was at the time going by a different name. And I guess Miro was going by a different name at the time too. Andrade El Idolo didn't have the El Idolo yet, but there's still a lot of the same people. So it's very cool to be able to see it now play out in real life, but there's so much more to come. And now as the roster's developed, it's kind of beyond my wildest dreams, honestly, with a lot of the stars we have.
I would one day love to see if you have it, a diary collection of what you booked pre-AEW, and then just see how that sort of shaped out.
There's all kinds of different companies, and it changed a lot over the years. But the Dynamite was always a thing that stuck, so it's cool.
Amazing.
It's real life.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm going down memory lane is watch videos of fan reactions to big debuts or big returns. Think The Rock coming back to WWE, the Hardy Boys at WrestleMania, and of course, the debut of CM Punk in AEW. Just taking out the work side of it for a moment, how good did it feel to give a moment like that to fans, the same type of moment that probably got you hooked on pro wrestling?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things we've ever done. And to be able to do it, so close to my home, in my home state of Chicago, near where I grew up, and, a city where my parents have home now and has been a home for a good chunk of my life. So I was so happy to be able to bring AEW to the United Center. And then it meant so much to be able to organize something that meant so much to the fans. And the idea of doing the show then and there, really so much of it stemmed from the mind of CM Punk and me and him sitting together and collaborating like we have for months, trying to put together ideas and things that not only that we would enjoy, but that we thought the fans would enjoy too. And I think there's still so much to come. And I take a lot of pride in what happened that night. And I think he should take a lot of pride in it too. He made a lot of people very happy. And he asked me about, is there a chance to book the United Center? And I looked at it, and lo and behold, there was a date. There was August 20th. And it was the second episode of Rampage effectively. And I hadn't booked a building yet for it. And it was like, we could do this. And history was made. And then as to what happened, and the fateful day when I went to Darby and talked to him about the promo where he uttered the expression, the best in the world, which certainly he was very excited about when I told him what he was going to get to do. That was a special day. And I really think, thanks to the great fans in Chicago that night, it was one of the most great ovations and special reactions I've ever witnessed. So it was great to be a part of it.
All right, I'm going to leave it on this note because you've been so generous with your time. I took advantage of that extra clock you gave me. In 2020, I heard that your New Year's resolution for AEW was to better organize the show. Going into 2022, what's the New Year's resolution for AEW?
To continue expanding. We've got the Battle of the Belts and the Owen Hart Cup, and so much more to come in 2022. We've developed the roster so much in the past year, more than I honestly had ever dreamed we could going into the year. So I look forward to what's ahead in 2022. And I think we've come out, what a year it was. Our 4 pay-per-views this year happen to be the 4 biggest pay-per-views we've ever done. Our top 4 box office shows of all time. And the last 2 are the top 2. So we've ended up in an amazing place, and it's very exciting going into 2022.
I'm going to leave you with the last word, so I'll do my quick plug now, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Link to the CBS Sports feature in the bottom in the description of this video. Thank you to CBS Sports, as always, for empowering it. Please subscribe, tap the notification bell, thumbs up. All that goes a long way. Tony Khan, congratulations on everything AEW these past couple of years. I look forward to seeing what 2022 holds. If you got anything left to say, let the people know.
I'll see you let me ask you, Shaq, when is this going up?
Preferably sooner than later.
Today?
Probably not that soon.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed Rampage. I hope you enjoyed Rampage, and I'll see you all for the Holiday Bash. Dynamite Wednesday, December 22nd, this Wednesday. Huge card, MJF and FTR versus CM Punk, Darby Allin, and Sting, wrestling his first match in Greensboro in over 27 years. And much more to be announced by the time you see this video. A lot more has been announced about the card. Malachi Black versus Griff Garrison has been announced, but there's much more about the card that by now you will know after Rampage. So I look forward to seeing you all in Greensboro. Thank you, and happy holidays, Shaq, and thanks for having me on.
Happy holidays.